Again, you see the two ladders erected there with the giant American flag hanging from it. All this, every time we see an officer who is killed in the line of duty, this is the show of respect we see from law enforcement, not only police and sheriffs, but of all first responders, fire departments, paramedics, all coming out to support a very united family, because when one department loses a life like this, they all feel it. It hits very close to home. Going back to the details of the crash that killed Officer Sanders, we know it happened during a high-speed police pursuit involving two cars in the city of Alhambra. Detectives told us that officers responded to the area of Valley Boulevard and Fremont Avenue around 3 this morning. And during that pursuit, an Alhambra police officer's SUV, Officer Sanders' SUV, and another vehicle collided. We saw pictures of his unit that was severely damaged, and we know that the airbags had deployed when this crash happened. As for the other car, again, we are told a female passenger died after she was apparently ejected from that vehicle. In addition, two men were injured. One is in the hospital. The driver is being questioned right now. And we're told that Alhambra Police Chief Garrett Kennedy says Officer Sanders had been with the Alhambra Police Department for just 8 months. Very new to the department. He previously worked for about a year with Long Beach PD. Quoting Chief Garrett Kennedy here, he said earlier that Officer Sanders was known for his unwavering reliability. Quote, he's the type of officer who responded to every call, whether he was dispatched to it or not. He was just one of those officers. We're also told by Chief Kennedy that Officer Sanders leaves behind his fiancée. He is survived by his parents, 2 sisters, and a brother. He was only 28 years old. And as we continue to watch this procession, a very slow procession, so that, you know, the law enforcement, fire community who were lining the streets here can properly pay their respects. And no doubt there will be a massive show of support from the community as well. We know that every time we see one of these tragic deaths, that the community comes out, you know, whether it's on overpasses, lining the streets themselves, they also want to show their support to the officer himself and to the entire law enforcement community for what they do on a daily basis, sacrificing themselves, and in this case, sadly, dying in the line of duty. Again, a procession underway for 28-year-old Officer Alec Sanders of the Alhambra Police Department, who died early this morning in the line of duty. Very sad to see here. I'm sure it's so emotional for the officers who knew him, but again, of course, for the entire law enforcement community. So sad to see a young officer just at the beginning of his law enforcement career losing his life like this. And he was praised by his chief earlier, as I said, for his dedication and willingness to respond to every call, not just the ones he's responsible for. So you see the hearse being preceded by the motorcycle officers as it makes its way to the LA coroner's office in Boyle Heights, followed by his department's units. And you can see his fellow officers and fellow employees at the Alhambra Police Department. They have a ribbon over their badge, which is what normally happens, what they wear on their badges when they suffer a loss like this, paying their respects and honoring the officer the way he should be. They continue to follow on foot, making their way under the 2 ladders with the giant American flag draped under it. And here is another live look from SkyCal over the scene. You can see the massive, massive show of support by all the black and white vehicles you see, by the fire trucks you see parked there. Police, sheriffs, firefighters, law enforcement community, the community itself, civilians coming out to pay honor and respect to 28-year-old Officer Alec Sanders, who passed away in the line of duty this morning in a pursuit crash. We will continue following this procession. You can continue watching it over on KCAL 9 for more coverage. We will, of course, bring you all the latest and bring it to you at 4 p.m. on KCAL 9. All right, we are going to end our broadcast here on KCAL 9, but we will continue the live pictures over the procession on our stream. Just head over to CBS LA for continuing coverage. All right, we are now streaming live on CBS LA. You're looking at live pictures over the procession for 28-year-old Alhambra police officer Alec Sanders. Officer Sanders was killed in the line of duty early this morning around 3 a.m. as he pursued a driver in Alhambra. We know that his car collided with the suspect's car, which ended up killing the officer, killing one of 3 passengers in the other car, another passenger injured, the driver being questioned right now. This is a live look over the procession that began a few minutes ago from LA General Hospital, where a sea of law enforcement has gathered to pay their respects to the officer. The procession has been underway for a few minutes right now, and we're taking a look at the very slow procession as it makes its way to the LA County Coroner's Office. We saw Officer Sanders' flag-draped coffin being loaded into the hearse, and so many emotions we saw from family members and fellow law enforcement officers as they witnessed all this. There is a massive show of respect, as we can see from the air and on the ground right there. Officers, law enforcement community, firefighters, first responder community coming out to pay their respects and salute the officer who died in the line of duty. Early this morning, not long after the officer was hospitalized, his police chief, Garrett Kennedy, Alhambra Police Department's police chief, Garrett Kennedy, spoke about Officer Sanders. He said, quote, "He's known for his unwavering reliability. He's the type of officer who responded to every call, whether he was dispatched to it or not. He was just one of those officers." The chief also telling us that Officer Sanders leaves behind a fiance. He is survived by his parents, 2 sisters, and a brother, and again was only 28 years old. We are told he had only been with the Alhambra Police Department for 8 months, previously worked for about a year with the Long Beach Police Department. So again, a very young officer just at the beginning of his law enforcement career. You're looking at live pictures right now from SkyCal and also from the ground. The camera focused on the giant American flag that is hanging from 2 ladder trucks. As a show of respect, every time we see a tragedy like this, when a law enforcement officer, a firefighter loses his or her life, we see this massive show of respect and honor for those who had given their lives in the line of duty. Truly heartbreaking. Earlier, before we saw the hearse take off from the hospital, we saw what appeared to be his family members being consoled by police officers as they loaded his flag-draped coffin into the hearse. Truly, no words can describe, what they are going through right now, but so heartbreaking for us to watch as members of the public watching this. Can you imagine what his parents, his fiance, his siblings are going through right now? And of course, his entire department, the Alhambra Police Department, the entire law enforcement community. Earlier, LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell visited us here at CBS LA Mornings. He came to talk about issues going on in the LAPD, but he also told us before he came over to our studios, he went over to the hospital to check on Officer Alec Sanders because, of course, he had heard about what happened this morning. And you could clearly tell he was shaken. And we said, "How you doing, Chief?" He said, "Not good," because anytime this happens to a police officer, whether it's in your department or not, it hits us all. So the entire law enforcement community is shaken up by this. You can see the line of people there on the street lining the way out of the hospital. And we saw the line also formed on the street, probably on Marengo Street there, as the hearse made its way to the coroner's office. You can see the hearse right there. It is coming to a stop. And again, to the left of your screen, that is a live picture of the hearse carrying Officer Sanders' body. On the right, pictures from the ground at the scene where two fire ladders are now lowering the American flag that has been hanging in honor of Officer Sanders. Just take a moment to take it all in. You can see that the line of officers who showed up there to pay their respects have not moved. They want to be there to see this all the way through. And you can see that the fire department right there folding up the flag that hung from two ladders as the hearse made its way under it. They are now folding up the flag. From what we can see, if my producers can help me out here, it looks like the hearse possibly has arrived at the coroner's office because it has come to a stop. If you can let me know that. Okay, thank you for that. Yes, as we saw, the hearse has arrived at the coroner's office, and of course, the coroner will do their part and determine a cause of death in all this. And wow. And I'm sorry, my producer's talking to me right now. Can you repeat that, please? Okay. I'm told that there will possibly be an escort of the coffin into the coroner's office. So we'll wait and see if that happens. But you can see that the driveway into the coroner's office is lined with fellow officers and members of the first responder community there to salute the officer's body as it is taken from the hearse and into the coroner's office. Again, if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live picture of a procession that has just ended at the LA County Coroner's Office, a procession for 28-year-old Alhambra police officer Alec Sanders, who was killed in the line of duty around 3 early this morning as he was responding to a pursuit call. We know that the officer was killed in this crash when it collided with another car. Detectives tell us there were 3 people in the other car. 1 person died, another was injured, is in the hospital, and a third is now being questioned by authorities. Sadly, the officer did not survive his injuries. We saw pictures of his unit. We saw that it was severely damaged. We know that the impact was so severe that the airbag deployed. So you can imagine the injuries he sustained were very serious. And of course, later we found out that he sadly passed away from those injuries. We've been covering this all morning long since it happened at 3 a.m. And many were hopeful that the officer's injuries weren't going to be fatal. But of course, sadly, we did learn that he did pass away. His chief, Alhambra's police chief, speaking so highly of him. Again, a fairly new police officer with the Alhambra Police Department. His chief describing him as someone who would answer every call, not afraid to answer every call, because that's just the kind of officer he was. Sadly, again, the officer leaves behind a fiancé, his parents, siblings. Just 28 years old, just starting his law enforcement career. Such a huge loss to see a young life who was just starting out lose his life. But as Chief said again, he died because this is just the kind of officer he was. He responded to every call, calls that weren't even his, showing his dedication and love for the job and helping others and helping others stay safe. You see the officers there lined up. You can see officers, some in uniform, and sheriff's deputies, some in uniform. You can also see some in their civilian clothing, most likely fellow employees, civilian employees from his department who have come out to show their respects to Officer Sanders. Such a sad and heartbreaking moment. You know, before his hearse arrived at the coroner's office, we saw his hearse depart from LA General, where the officer had been hospitalized. A show of emotion from what looked like to be his family members, embracing each other, just sobbing, and fellow law enforcement officers just trying to console them, hold them as officers were loading the flag-draped coffin into the hearse. But of course, no words can console the family members in this time of grief and sadness. Simply no words. But no doubt that this massive show of support from Alhambra's police department and from the Southern California law enforcement community, the first responder community, this massive support, no doubt is bringing them some solace and some comfort, some consolation, knowing that their grief is shared by so many, not within just the law enforcement community, but also within the larger Southern California community. We all mourn with the law enforcement officers. Every time we see an officer, a firefighter who loses their life in the line of duty, we see such a massive show of respect. We see people come out along the roads and overpasses, over freeways, just wanting to let first responders and the law enforcement community see that they're behind them, and they want to say thank you for the sacrifices they make on a daily basis to keep our communities safe. And that is certainly what Officer Alec Sanders was doing this morning when he was involved in this fatal and deadly crash. Certainly not the news we wanted to hear. When we heard that this happened early this morning, we had heard that the officer was sent to the hospital, all of us hoping that his injuries were not fatal. But sadly, again, we did learn that he did lose his life from his injuries. The damage to his SUV, his police unit, was very, very severe. We were told that the crash impact was so strong that his airbags had deployed. So you can tell exactly just, the impact of the crash that he sustained. Earlier we saw the LA Fire Department with their 2 ladder trucks. They had a giant American flag hanging under it that was on Marengo Street in honor of the officer. There were so many law enforcement agencies there in this somber yet powerful show of respect to this young officer. As the hearse made its way from the hospital to the coroner's office, officers, civilians, they all stood in salute, in a solemn salute to the officer, to honor his sacrifice and to show their respects. For those of you who maybe have not heard about how this happened, we want to take you back early this morning, around 3 a.m. This crash happened during a high-speed police pursuit involving 2 cars. One is the officer's car and the suspect's car. This was around Valley Boulevard and Fremont Avenue. Alhambra police telling us during the pursuit, the officer's SUV and another vehicle, well, they collided. The black and white, again, severely damaged with the airbag deploying. The other car, we're told that a female passenger died. She was apparently ejected from the vehicle. There were 2 other people inside that car, 2 men. One of them, a second passenger, suffered major injuries and was taken to the hospital. We're told the driver has moderate injuries and he is now being questioned by authorities. So by what I'm saying, you can tell just the impact of this crash. 1 female in the suspect vehicle being ejected, the damage we saw, and the airbag deploying in the officer's car speaks volumes as to how severe these injuries may have been. Earlier, Alhambra's Police Chief Garrett Kennedy told us that Officer Sanders had been with his department for just 8 months. We're told he previously worked for about 1 year with the Long Beach Police Department, so a very young officer who was just beginning with the Alhambra Police Department. You just saw a close-up of some of the people who were lined up there, not just from Alhambra's Police Department, but from all over, not police, sheriff's deputies, civilians, who worked in the police department, civilians who work in law enforcement in general. All of them feel this. The sworn officers, the civilians, all of them feel a loss like this, and I'm sure it hits them so close. Even though they're not, related by blood, we know that police officers, firefighters, they are what they call brothers and sisters in blue, very tight. They're united by their calling, the job that they have, and the known sacrifices they take daily to do what they do. Such a sad and somber showing here, just so quiet. Everybody just probably in their grief right now and trying to digest what happened this morning, but also very present right there on the scene, staying at the scene to make sure that they're there as long as they can be there for that officer and his family, to show that they're there to support and to comfort the ones who are grieving so badly. Again, we're told by Alhambra's police chief that Officer Alec Sanders, 28 years old, leaves behind his fiancée, his parents, his siblings, and of course a department that's mourning, and a broader and greater law enforcement community that's also mourning along with them. And we, of course, as the community, also mourning with the Alhambra Police Department. And for all those who are affected by this loss, our hearts go out to them. We are so sorry. And we are now looking at Officer Sanders' flag-draped coffin, carried by his fellow officers, making its way into the coroner's office. Of course, the coroner will officially determine the cause of death, but as I mentioned earlier, we know that he sustained major injuries, with his police SUV being very damaged and the airbag deploying. Officer Sanders passing away from his injuries. Let's just take a moment. All right, again, you're looking at a live look from SkyCal over the procession and the carrying in of his coffin, of his flag-draped coffin, into the coroner's office, being carried by his fellow officers. Such a heartbreaking and tragic story we've been covering. All right, for more coverage of this tragic story, please tune in to our 4 p.m. newscast on KCAL 9. This afternoon, we will have continuing coverage on CBS LA.